In the year 2350, Earth was a relatively insignificant speck in the grand scope of the galaxy. Under the banner of the United Earth Federation, humans had worked hard to establish a reputation, but they were still considered a minor player compared to the ancient and powerful species that made up the Galactic Council. The Council was made up of the most dominant species in the galaxy, the mighty Varnox, a race of massive warriors known for their physical strength and ruthless military tactics, the La, a telepathic species capable of reading minds and manipulating thoughts, and the Kregar, a machine-dominated society that relied on cold logic and superior technology. These species had long looked down on humanity, dismissing Earth's fledgling civilization as primitive and insignificant. To the Council, humans were nothing more than an anomaly, a curious but unworthy species that lacked the sophistication and might of the established powers. However, everything changed when an existential threat emerged. The galaxy's peaceful systems, including many of the Council's own territories, began to face an overwhelming and dangerous force, the Xinthar. This mysterious alien race was unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. Their weapons were devastating, and their forces seemingly endless. Entire star systems were wiped out in days, their cities reduced to ashes, their populations decimated. The once proud species of the Galactic Council was stunned. Despite their vast resources and technological superiority, the Council struggled to devise an effective response. The Xinthar advanced without mercy, and the galaxy's greatest powers were pushed to the brink of collapse. In response to this growing crisis, the Galactic Council convened a meeting to strategize. The Varnox, Lyre, and Kregar quickly agreed on a plan. They would combine their forces and launch a massive counteroffensive. Their belief was simple: the sheer might of their combined fleets, backed by centuries of experience, would be enough to halt the Xinthar. And yet, despite the severity of the threat, they saw no place for humanity in their plans. The Council, still viewing Earth as weak, refused to grant Earth any real involvement. To them, humanity's technology was nowhere near advanced enough to contribute meaningfully to the fight. The decision was clear. Earth would be left to watch as the Council's powerful forces handled the crisis. Admiral Olivia Kane, a young but brilliant leader within the United Earth Federation, was infuriated by this blatant dismissal. To her and many others, it felt like another instance of the galaxy's powerful species underestimating humanity. It was an insult, one that she could not ignore. Humanity had fought for survival for centuries, had faced adversity on every front, and had still managed to rise above it all. Yet here, at the edge of extinction, they were left out of the fight. Something needed to change. Earth would not sit idly by while the galaxy's powers made their decisions without considering humanity's potential. In secret, Admiral Kane began the preparation of a counteroffensive that the Galactic Council would never expect. Earth's most brilliant scientists and engineers worked tirelessly on a hidden technological breakthrough, one that could rival the advanced weaponry of the Council's species. A fleet was constructed, shrouded in secrecy, with new ships designed for speed, stealth, and devastating power. This new fleet would be humanity's answer to the Xinthar, and to the Council's scorn. Earth's military might had grown in ways the galaxy could not yet comprehend, and it was ready to strike. While the Council prepared to face the Xinthar on their own terms, Earth was ready to make its move, and it would do so on its own, without asking for permission. As the days passed, Earth's secret fleet began to assemble in the shadows of distant moons, hidden from the prying eyes of the Council. The first waves of the new technology were tested, beyond anything humanity had ever built before, far surpassing anything the Council had assumed Earth was capable of. Admiral Kane knew that time was running out, but she also knew that if humanity was to truly make its mark on the galaxy, they would have to act swiftly. As the fleet's construction neared completion, a quiet confidence spread among the ranks of the United Earth Federation. The galaxy had made a grave mistake in overlooking humanity. Now, Earth was ready to remind them just what humans were capable of. The counterattack would be swift, ruthless, and it would leave the Galactic Council stunned. The Xanthar were like a storm, a relentless, unstoppable force sweeping across the galaxy, leaving devastation in their wake. Their warships, massive and heavily armed, were an embodiment of terror, designed not only for battle but for total annihilation. Entire systems fell before them, entire civilizations erased from existence in the blink of an eye. Planet after planet was swallowed by the Xanthar's merciless expansion. No one could escape their wrath. The Galactic Council, once a bastion of unity and power, found itself scrambling in the face of this overwhelming threat. The Varnuks, the Lyre, and the Kregar, species who had long considered themselves the galaxy's dominant powers, were helpless against the sheer destructive force of the Xanthar. Despite their advanced technology, their tactics were too slow, too predictable. Fleets of the most powerful ships the galaxy had ever seen were torn apart in space battles that stretched for days, leaving only scattered debris in their wake. The Galactic Council, stunned by the scale of the devastation, called for an emergency summit. The leaders of the council met, each species grappling with the reality that their once mighty military forces were failing to contain the Xanthar. The Lyra tried to use their telepathic powers to predict the Xanthar's moves, but the invaders' minds were a chaotic enigma. The Varnuks, famed for their unmatched strength and ferocity in battle, could not outfight the Xanthar's superior firepower. The Kregar, cold and calculating, found their machine-driven strategies ineffective against an enemy that adapted with terrifying speed. The Council's finest minds were at a loss. As the Council debated, frustration and fear mounted among the galaxy's most powerful species. They had long considered humanity unworthy of participation in galactic matters, dismissing Earth as a fledgling race with no significant technological advancements. They had underestimated the humans, and now that mistake was costing them dearly. The Xanthar showed no signs of slowing down. In fact, they only grew more relentless with each passing day. While the Council's best attempts were stifled and their resources began to dwindle, Earth was left watching from the sidelines. But the leaders of Earth, Admiral Olivia Kane among them, knew that humanity would not be powerless forever. There had to be another way. In the shadows, Earth's response was quietly taking shape. Behind closed doors, a small group of scientists, engineers, and military leaders began a project unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Earth's engineers worked tirelessly, focusing on creating new weapons, new technologies that would not only give them a fighting chance, but would also completely change the tide of the war. The world's most brilliant minds were tasked with a singular goal: to build a fleet powerful enough to confront the Xanthar and to surprise the entire galaxy. Earth's advantage was not in sheer numbers or superior firepower. Those things were no match for the Xanthar. Instead, humanity's greatest asset was its ability to innovate, adapt, and outthink its enemies. The United Earth Federation had been quietly developing a series of breakthrough technologies that were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. One such invention was a new type of weaponry that combined high-energy particle beams with magnetic pulse cannons. These weapons, still in their early stages of development, had the potential to tear through the Xanthar's advanced shields and inflict catastrophic damage on their ships. But the real advantage humanity had was its tactical brilliance. The galaxy's other species, especially the Council, relied on tried-and-true battle strategies. But humans, having survived countless threats on their home planet, knew how to think outside the box. They had developed ways to strike fast and unexpectedly, using smaller, faster ships designed for precision strikes and covert operations. In secret, Earth began constructing its fleet, working day and night to bring these new technologies to life. It was a desperate gamble. The Xanthar had already decimated entire fleets, and Earth's leaders knew that this could be their only shot at survival. If the Xanthar continued their rampage, the galaxy would be lost. But Earth was ready to take a stand. They were no longer a passive observer in galactic affairs. They were preparing to strike back, armed with new technologies and strategies that no one, especially not the Galactic Council, saw coming. Admiral Kane watched as the final pieces of humanity's secret fleet came together. Her heart was heavy with the weight of the responsibility on her shoulders, but a quiet confidence began to build within her. The Xinthar may have been powerful, but they had no idea what humanity was capable of. The galaxy would soon learn that Earth was not a weak, insignificant species. It was a force to be reckoned with. The stage was set for a confrontation that would forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. As the Galactic Council scrambled to respond to the Xinthar's relentless onslaught, a hidden force was quietly moving toward the heart of the conflict, humanity's secret fleet, led by Admiral Olivia Kane. Known across Earth for her sharp intellect, unconventional strategies, and a reputation for winning against impossible odds, Admiral Kane was about to change the course of the galaxy's future. While the Council's forces continued to clash with the Xinthar in traditional, large-scale battles, Earth had been preparing in the shadows, creating a fleet capable of outsmarting the enemy. It wasn't just their weapons or ships that set them apart, but the way they approached warfare itself. Earth had developed a new form of quantum shielding, a revolutionary technology that rendered the Xinthar's most devastating weapons almost useless. This was no simple defense. It was an impenetrable barrier, one that would turn the tide in ways that Xinthar never anticipated. The first engagement between Earth's fleet and the Xinthar was nothing short of shocking. As the Xinthar ships unleashed their full fury, their weapons should have obliterated humanity's fleet with ease, but instead, the Xinthar's beams and missiles splintered harmlessly against the quantum shields. For the first time, the Xinthar found themselves facing a true challenge. They had never encountered anything like this before, and it caught them off guard. What made the situation even more dangerous for the Xinthar was the fact that humanity wasn't just relying on advanced technology. They had mastered the art of strategic warfare, things that the ancient and proud species of the Galactic Council would never stoop to. Traps, ambushes, guerrilla tactics, techniques that were considered beneath the honorable species of the Council, were humanity's greatest strength. Admiral Kane's fleet moved with the precision of a predator, striking quickly and disappearing before the Xinthar could react. Human warships, smaller and faster than anything the Council had ever built, darted in and out of combat, catching the Xinthar by surprise at every turn. They used every advantage they could, from exploiting the terrain of the battlefield to employing deceptive tactics that made it impossible for the Xinthar to predict their next move. The Xinthar, known for their overwhelming power and unrelenting march across the galaxy, found themselves in a position they had never experienced before, on the defensive. The first battle was just the beginning. As the fleet continued to engage the Xinthar, humanity's tactics began to break the enemy's morale. The Xinthar had relied on brute force and fear, but the humans were attacking in ways that undermined their confidence. Earth's forces didn't care about honor or traditional warfare. They cared about winning, and as each battle passed, it became clear that humanity had found a way to fight that the galaxy's established powers had never considered. In the depths of space, the Xinthar began to retreat. They had never seen anything like this before, an enemy that didn't fight by the same rules, didn't value the same concepts of war. The tide was turning, and it wasn't in favor of the Xinthar. Back on Earth, the leadership knew that every victory against the Xinthar would send ripples throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Council, which had long dismissed humanity as weak, would soon have to confront the reality that Earth's hidden power had not only leveled the playing field, but was now reshaping the galaxy's balance of power. With each new victory, the shockwaves of humanity's success reverberated across the galaxy. The Xinthar's seemingly unstoppable advance had come to a halt, and no one, not even the Galactic Council, could ignore the impact of this new force. The question now was no longer whether humanity could hold its own. It was how much further they could push this advantage. What had once been a desperate gamble was now becoming a devastatingly effective strategy, and the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, was beginning to realize that Earth was no longer just a minor player. It was a force that could no longer be ignored. As the battle between Earth's fleet and the Xinthar raged on, something undeniable began to happen. The Xinthar were losing. At first, they had been brimming with arrogance, believing that overwhelming firepower and sheer numbers would crush the upstart humans without effort. But Admiral Olivia Kane's cunning and the unexpected efficiency of humanity's tactics turned the tide. Each battle, each clash between the two fleets saw the Xinthar losing ground. Ambushes, surprise strikes, and lightning-fast maneuvers, Earth's fleet executed them all with such precision that the Xinthar couldn't adapt fast enough. Where the Xinthar were used to brute force and simple, direct attacks, humanity fought with creativity and ingenuity, exploiting every advantage they could find. The Xinthar, once invincible in their eyes, were now on the retreat, and they didn't know how to stop the momentum that humanity had built. Admiral Kane, ever the strategist, led with a calm fury that inspired her crew. Every move, every decision she made, was calculated to not only outfight the Xinthar, but to outthink them. Human ships, agile and equipped with cutting-edge technology, darted through enemy lines, striking at weak points before disappearing into the void. The Xinthar, despite their immense power, couldn't match the relentless speed and unpredictability of Earth's forces. They had come to expect their enemies to follow the same rigid doctrines of war, but humanity had shattered that expectation. Each engagement felt like a new nightmare for the Xinthar, one they couldn't anticipate or prepare for. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council, watching from the sidelines, was growing increasingly uneasy. The Varnoks, the mighty warriors known for their physical strength, the La, the telepathic species capable of reading minds, and the Kregar, the ruthless machine-dominated race, they all began to question their earlier dismissal of humanity. They had underestimated the human species, deeming them too unrefined, too young in the ways of galactic warfare to contribute meaningfully. Now, however, humanity's fleet was proving them wrong with every victory. The Council's powerhouses were forced to acknowledge the rise of a new player on the galactic stage. They had been content to let the Xinthar tear through the galaxy, believing they could contain the threat together. But now they were faced with an uncomfortable truth. Humanity, once seen as weak, had grown into an unexpected force, one that had the potential to reshape the balance of power in ways they hadn't foreseen. As the human victories continued, a ripple of fear began to spread through the Council's ranks. The Varnoks, once smug in their superiority, began to doubt their ability to protect the galaxy from the Xinthar, and they couldn't ignore the rise of humanity any longer. The Liar, who prided themselves on their mental prowess, couldn't fathom how humans had learned to fight so effectively without their advanced psychic abilities. Even the Kregar, cold and calculated, were taken aback by humanity's unpredictable and seemingly irrational tactics. They were no longer just watching a conflict, they were watching a transformation. Humanity was proving that raw power wasn't everything. Intelligence, adaptability, and courage could be just as potent, if not more so. The Xinthar, on the other hand, were beginning to crumble. Their once pristine fleet, built on an arrogance that considered them the ultimate conquerors, was now a shattered shell of its former glory. The relentless assault by Earth's fleet had drained their resources, their morale, and their belief in their invincibility. Every Xinthar commander that fell to humanity's tactics was a blow to their empire, and as the weeks passed, the once mighty war machine began to fall. The Council, which had long viewed humanity as a minor player in the grand cosmic stage, now saw them as a force they could no longer control. In a move that stunned the galaxy, the Galactic Council sent a powerful fleet to Earth, intending to seize control of humanity's military might and absorb the human forces into their own ranks, hoping to neutralize the threat humanity represented. The Council believed that by claiming humanity's technology and military prowess, they could reassert their dominance and prevent any more disruptions to their rule. But Admiral Olivia Kane, the brilliant strategist behind humanity's resurgence, had already anticipated this move. She had spent countless hours analyzing the Council's political weaknesses and internal power struggles. When she learned of the Council's plans to take over, she acted quickly. With cold precision, she devised a bold counterattack, a response that would shake the foundations of the Galactic Council's authority. She knew that Earth could not simply back down and accept subjugation. If humanity was to have any future in this galaxy, it had to assert itself now, in the most decisive way possible. Without hesitation, Admiral Kane ordered a complete shutdown of any cooperation with the Galactic Council. Earth's military was to sever all ties, and any further support or resources from the Council would be denied. Humanity, for the first time in history, was declaring its independence from the Council's control. The human leadership, united in purpose and with the full backing of their military, stood firmly behind Admiral Kane's decision. The Council's attempt to dominate humanity had sparked a fire that could not be extinguished. Earth was no longer a part of the Galactic Alliance. It was now an independent power, ready to chart its own course. The response from Earth was swift and brutal. Kane had already positioned a series of well-coordinated strikes on the Galactic Council's vital supply lines, communication hubs, resource transport routes, and critical military infrastructure. These attacks, precise and ruthless, crippled the Council's ability to respond effectively. In one fell swoop, humanity had disrupted the Council's war effort and sent a clear message. Earth would no longer be manipulated or controlled. The Xinthar, still in the midst of their war with humanity, were thrown into complete disarray. They had been focused on Earth's fleet, thinking the humans were just another species in the galactic struggle. Now, with the sudden shift in humanity's tactics and the devastating blow to the Council's supply chain, the Xinthar found themselves in a precarious position. What was once a clear fight between them and the human forces now seemed more like a battle between two powerful, unpredictable forces. The Xinthar, uncertain of what the future held, struggled to adapt to the new dynamics unfolding before them. The galaxy, watching in awe, could hardly believe what had just transpired. The Galactic Council, the authority that had dominated the galaxy for centuries, was now reeling from the shock of humanity's defiance. The Council's once proud leaders, who had underestimated Earth and its people, were now forced to confront the reality that they no longer held the power they once did. Earth, through its swift and calculated actions, had sent shockwaves through the galaxy, and the balance of power was shifting in ways no one had anticipated. The Council's betrayal had pushed humanity to the breaking point, and in response, Earth had taken control of its own destiny. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. No longer a minor player, humanity was now a force that could not be ignored. Humanity's counterattack was swift and relentless. Earth, fully aware of its newfound strength and importance, had taken the initiative in ways the galaxy had never seen before. With Admiral Olivia Kane leading the charge, humanity unleashed a full-scale offensive against the remaining Xinthar forces, catching the enemy off guard and shaking the very foundations of the galactic balance. The Xinthar, once thought to be unstoppable, were now being systematically dismantled by a force they had never anticipated: human ingenuity, precision, and a fierce resolve to protect their place in the galaxy. Humanity's ships, now outfitted with cutting-edge technology and advanced weaponry, became instruments of destruction. The quantum shielding developed by Earth's scientists, combined with the deadly, unorthodox tactics devised by Admiral Kane, allowed humanity to launch strikes with almost guaranteed success. Each attack was a calculated risk, each ambush designed to exploit the smallest weaknesses in the Xinthar fleet. Earth's military, though smaller in number, was far more effective, using guerrilla tactics and clever feints to outmaneuver the Xinthar at every turn. The Xinthar, caught in a frenzy of confusion, could not keep up with the speed and precision of humanity's strikes. Every skirmish saw Earth's forces cutting through the Xinthar warships, taking down one after another in quick succession. The once dominant Xinthar, who had swept through entire systems with ease, were now reeling, struggling to adapt to the brutal efficiency of humanity's counteroffensive. The Xinthar's warships, once feared for their firepower and size, now looked like helpless prey, unable to fight back as Earth's ships sliced through their defenses with surgical precision. As each battle passed, it became increasingly clear to the galaxy that humanity was not just a fledgling species, it was a formidable force to be reckoned with. Back at the Galactic Council, the once confident leaders of the galaxy's greatest powers could only watch in stunned silence as their combined forces failed to halt humanity's advance. The Council's fleets, made up of the most advanced species in the galaxy, were struggling to keep up with the unpredictable and merciless tactics of Earth's military. The Varnox, the Laya, and the Kregar all had underestimated humanity, assuming that Earth was too primitive, too inexperienced to pose a serious threat. Now, with the Xintha being pushed back in wave after wave of attacks, the Council could do nothing but watch as their own fleets floundered in comparison to Earth's unrelenting assault. It became clear that humanity's success was not just due to advanced technology, it was their way of thinking, their ability to adapt and improvise in the heat of battle that gave them the edge. The Council's military forces, focused on honor and traditional warfare, struggled against the sheer ingenuity and ruthless pragmatism of Earth's strategy. The way humanity had harnessed their technology, not just for brute force, but for precision and efficiency, was a game-changer. The Xintha, once the galaxy's most feared conquerors, were now on the verge of complete defeat, and the Council realized that Earth was not only fighting to protect its own world, it was now on the cusp of reshaping the future of the galaxy itself. As the Xintha began to crumble, their ships falling apart under the pressure of humanity's assault, the outcome of the war was becoming increasingly clear. Earth was winning, and not just winning, humanity was on the verge of changing the very fabric of galactic power. The Council, once the undisputed rulers of the galaxy, could no longer ignore the power that humanity had shown. What had once seemed like a small, insignificant species was now on the cusp of establishing itself as one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. The question was no longer whether humanity could survive, but how the galaxy would adjust to the reality of Earth's newfound dominance. With the Xintha defeated and their once imposing war machine shattered, Earth had not only survived, but had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. What had been seen as an insignificant world, a fledgling species of little consequence, had proven its worth in ways that none could have predicted. Earth's military, under the brilliant leadership of Admiral Olivia Kane, had not only defeated a race that had been sweeping across the galaxy with terrifying force, but humanity had also done it on their own terms. They had fought, strategized, and won with an innovation and resourcefulness that the galaxy's oldest and most advanced species had never expected. Now, with the Xintha in retreat and their forces in shambles, the galaxy looked on in stunned silence. Humanity had done what no one had thought possible. Earth had rewritten the rules of galactic warfare. The victory was more than just a military triumph. It was a demonstration of humanity's incredible potential. The Galactic Council, once dismissive of Earth's presence in the galaxy, now had no choice but to reconsider their entire view of humanity. The Varnox, the Laya, the Kregar, all of the Council's members, had underestimated the human race. They had assumed that Earth's lack of galactic history and its seemingly primitive technology would keep them out of the bigger galactic picture. Now, those same species were forced to confront the fact that humanity had not only earned its place among the stars, but was also capable of leading the galaxy into a new age. Admiral Kane, once seen as a mere strategist in a small fleet, was now hailed as a galactic hero, a symbol of human ingenuity and willpower. Her tactics, her ability to think outside the box and adapt in the heat of battle, had turned the tide of the war and earned her the respect of even the most powerful species in the galaxy. The Xintha's defeat was only the beginning. With Earth at the forefront, the newly formed alliance between humanity and the other species was no longer one based on subordination or suspicion. It was now a true partnership, with humanity positioned as a leader and innovator in the galaxy. The tactics that had devastated the Xintha were now being adopted by other species, and Earth's technology, once considered unrefined, was now seen as a revolutionary breakthrough. Humanity's willingness to adapt, to break from tradition and embrace unconventional strategies, had given them an edge that no one had anticipated. The Galactic Council, shaken and humbled, was forced to reassess its structure. No longer could the ancient powers dictate the course of galactic events. Humanity had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, a species could rise, innovate, and dominate the galaxy. As Earth stood tall as the cornerstone of this new galactic order, the final scene unfolded at the heart of the newly formed alliance. The flags of various species, once representing their dominance and authority, now flew side by side under one new banner, Earth's flag. The symbol of Earth's resilience, ingenuity, and unbreakable will was now recognized as the emblem of the future. At the center of a vast intergalactic council, Earth was not just a participant but a leader, a power to be reckoned with. The other species, who had once doubted humanity's place in the galaxy, now recognized the truth. Earth had earned its place as a force of strength and cunning, capable of shaping the galaxy's future. And as Earth's flag fluttered proudly, a symbol of the unyielding spirit of its people, the galaxy watched, knowing that this was only the beginning. The age of humanity's dominance had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The new galactic order was not one of subjugation or fear, but of cooperation, strength, and the undeniable truth that humanity was now at the center of the galaxy's future. The balance of power had shifted, and it was Earth that now stood at the forefront, ready to lead the galaxy into a new era.